So this is my homemade Mini Z / Micro B track. This is the latest iteration of the track. About 2 years ago I made a slightly smaller version of this for my son to sort of get into RC and to learn how to control his car and learn how to drive and put in clean laps. And then that was made using these little floor tiles here and that yellow pipe a tubing there, and I would sort of make a layout and use little Velcro strips to sort of tie the tubing down. But the problem we had there was, even though it was okay, it was easy for the cars to get caught up on the tubing there. So I wanted to eventually build a bigger track with better barriers, not even barriers, but just definitions of the track layout that made it a bit more accessible to drive on. If you hit the barrier, you could drive over it or bump off without getting stuck on those tubes over there. So I'll just go through briefly what I use. These here you can get from Amazon. They're just exercise puzzle mats, ProSource Fit. They're 2 feet by 2 feet, and they basically have two sides, just like any other EVA mat. You have this sort of textured side here, and then if you flip it over you get this surface here. So actually originally we had used this textured side on the previous version of the track, and this surface worked pretty well for like a Kyosho Mini Z buggy. That did actually really nicely on this surface, but it doesn't work so well for something like a Mini Z, MR, like two-wheel drive chassis, or even the Losi Micro B doesn't do quite as well on this surface. But if you flip it over for this surface here, although it's not exactly the same material as the name brand Mini Z tracks, it's pretty close, and you'll find that this does good enough for the Mini Z buggy. It does slide a bit more with the stock tires, but the Micro B does very nicely on this surface with the stock tires. I'll show you that in a moment. And the Kyosho MR 03 or 04 two-wheel drive chassis, they how well they do really depends. With the stock tires, those are the harder compound tires. You can drive around this in training mode, which is kind of slow, but it sort of works. But even then it depends on which car you have. Some of them actually tend to spin out more than others. So you're going to want maybe a softer compound tire, and I do also want to look into whether you can get a ball diff for the MR03 or MR04. That would also allow you to prevent your car from spinning out on the surface, but overall it's not bad. So basically I have a 3, 4, 5, 6 by 8 array of these tiles. You just flip them upside down, and then these pieces here that you see, those are just the edge pieces. So each set of tiles that you get in these packages, it comes with 2 edge pieces, so you get a ton of them. I just went to Home Depot and got some white paint and red paint and just painted those, and then we used hot glue to just glue down those pieces on the track. And what's good about hot glue is that you can, if you want to, if you need to, you can rip these up without too much difficulty. It holds well enough for cars to bump into them, but you can also rip this up and it's not going to destroy this surface here, so you can change the layout without too much trouble, as long as you don't mind going through a lot of hot glue. One thing I've noticed though, we've only had this done for about a day. The paint that I used on this, it doesn't stick that well to this surface here. So you're going to see little chips of paint along the track, and your tires are going to pick that up too as they run over the track surface with those little paint chips, peeling away on the track surface. So that's kind of an issue, but maybe a different kind of a paint, or maybe if I use primer or something, I can get the paint to stick better. But that's neither here nor there. So let's go through the cars I'm going to show you on this track. I'm going to go through 3 cars. We're going to go through the Losi Micro B right here. We're going to go through the Kyosho MR03 mid-motor two-wheel drive chassis, and the Kyosho Mini Z buggy chassis. So just as a point of reference here, These are two versions of the Kyosho MR03. I think this is the MR03W, the wide version for the Toyota GT1. Interestingly, I found that with the stock tires, the standard MR03 handles much better on that track. In training mode, this thing will spin out on corner entry. It's actually very unstable. I think because the tires are kind of hard, the stock tires, and they don't really mix well with that track surface. And also, this has an open gear diff. So if I could find a way, I'd have to check, maybe they do make them, but if I can get a ball diff for this and tighten it down just a little bit, that should help stabilize this chassis on corner entry. And then for this one, in training mode, it works perfectly fine on that track. If once you go into, like, what is it, full throttle mode or full mode, then it starts to slide around a bit much because the tires, again, are not quite grippy enough. You're going to need a softer compound tire. The other interesting thing I've noticed with this chassis, and again, probably because of the lack of grip, is if you set the dual rate all the way up to get maximum steering throw, the car actually corners less because the servo is going to turn the car, but the tires aren't really gripping, so the car's just going to slide, or the front's going to scrub against the tire. So you want to find just the right amount of dual rate with the stock tires to get the most steering for the amount of grip you have. Maximum throw doesn't necessarily give you the most steering there. So I will over time get softer tires and see what other modifications I can make to that chassis. But for now I'm just going to run it stock, and I think what we'll do is we'll start with this and then go to this and then this. So again, this one I think I have it in training mode right now. Yeah. And what I like about training mode, even though it's not super fast, is that it does make the track feel bigger. Because it takes the car longer to drive around the track, you kind of get more sort of use out of it. Oops. See, it does spin out a bit even now. But I can like take those turns full speed. If I tried to take these turns full speed in the MR03W, it would spin out. But overall not bad. So I'll just do a few laps here just to give you guys a sense of what it's like. And this is really good for, training, I guess, for real races. I can just practice hand-eye coordination and racing lines and all that. It's nice to be able to do this at home in the basement for sure. Especially when the weather's bad. In time, I do plan on, by the way, putting some off-road features on this track. We haven't quite figured out, or I haven't quite figured out exactly how I want to do that, because I'd like those features to be removable so I could swap between an on-road and an off-road track. But at the same time, those features have to stick well enough so that when you actually hit a jump, it doesn't push the jump around. So, anyway. Oops. See? It just bounces right off. No problem there. Alright. So let's turn that off. So here, I'll actually, let's see, I'll go into non-training mode, and you'll see the difference. It just spins right out. Tires are too hard, not enough grip, you really got to feather the throttle. It's doable, but it's difficult. You got to be very, very careful with throttle. Okay. Yep. Alright, let's bring this back. Alright, so let's see, I'll just put that back into training mode. Then I'll shut it off. Where do we go here? Oh, here's the switch. Okay. So that's the MR03. Let's take this guy. So this Mini Z Buggy I have in non-training mode. What I noticed about this, and again, I've used this buggy for a while on the previous iteration of the track where the surface was on the other side, where this was all flipped over. So these tires might be a little worn, and the rear tends to slide a bit on this surface, but it didn't really do that on the other surface. It gripped a lot better, but it still drives okay. So it's certainly faster than the on-road cars, because it does have slightly better grip because it's four-wheel drive. Another thing I like about doing this is all these cars use pistol grip radios, and I normally drive stick radios, so this is nice to help me practice driving with a pistol radio. I'm not really a natural at pistol grips. Anyway, this does pretty well. Oops, see? If I hit it, I can just ride right over it, which is nice. With those yellow pipes, if you hit it, the car just gets stuck. And then you got to go on there and marshal the car, which is a pain because if you step on the surface with your slippers or anything, you're going to get it dirty, and then you got to vacuum it up. So anyway, it's kind of addictive. Oops. Alright, let's bring this back. So then I'm going to show you the Micro B. That thing flies on this surface. So let's see, where's the switch? Turn that off. Come on, turn it off. Okay. So what's interesting about the Micro B, maybe because it has these mini blockade tires, they grip really nicely. And the front rims also with the rib tires, those also grip really nicely. It's like the perfect tires for that surface. Let's see, where's the switcher? It's right there. Okay, so got the Micro B all set, and I'm going to be running the Micro B at 50% throttle. You don't even need any more than that, frankly. For a track like this, this is more than quick enough. Oops, what's going on here? Do I have the trim right? Yeah, okay. You hear that screeching sound? Man, this thing grips so much. Very responsive. Oops. Takes a few laps to get used to this because it's so much sharper. You see, it was something like, I think actually, this is a very versatile buggy because you can drive on a surface like this with stock tires. You don't have to modify anything. Oops. Let me get on there and marshal this. And you could also drive it with the surface on the other side with the mats flipped over. It just doesn't do quite as well. It grips a lot nicer on this surface here. So this is the one that I'd like to, maybe put a jump here, maybe put a jump there, maybe a wall ride, maybe some rhythm section in the middle there. This buggy would do very nicely over that. That would be fun. It's almost like driving on turf. It reminds me a lot of that, actually, with how sharp the car responds, how much grip you have. Oops. Oops. Keep doing that. You hardly have to use the brakes. You just coast into the turn. Oops. Anyway, just figured I'd show you guys this. This is sort of the latest developments in my basement here. I intend to get some decent use out of this with my kids. So I really built it for them. Well, partly for me, partly for them. Alright. So anyway, in terms of pricing, this is a lot cheaper than buying the name brand Mini-Z track sets. Those, for the same amount of surface area, you're going to have to spend a lot of money. This might cost you over $1,000 for the same surface area. But this here, I got 2 sets of, let's see, how many? 3, 6. So I have, this box came with 6 of these, and each of these has 6 mats. So you're looking at, what, 36 mats total? And that was just a little over $100. So you can get 2 of those boxes for $200, and you can build this whole thing and still have 18 of these mats left over to do whatever you want with. And it's a heck of a lot cheaper than doing, you know, the name brand stuff. And for just racing at home and fooling around, it's more than adequate. So anyway, hope you like it. Hope you find it interesting. Thanks for watching.